Obviously, we live in America and we have a new president. I have no desire whatsoever to discuss my feelings or the politics or anything remotely close to any of that on this podcast. But anytime there's a new administration, it feels like the pot always gets stirred up. Things change. There's uncertainty, which I think is true for just change in general. Anytime change happens in life. Disclaimer, I'm not speaking as a representative of my current agency for which I work. But obviously I have talked in the past a reference that I work for the federal government. And so if anybody has any remote concept of what's going on in the world, they know that there's been a lot of firings and layoffs and a lot of change and cutbacks. And again, I don't care to discuss my own opinion about what's happening because I don't really think I'm smart enough fully to know all of the ins and outs. I just have my bubble and my point of view. But it seemed like a good opportunity to talk about what do we do when things are uncertain, or how to deal with uncertainty. I don't even really want to call it adversity because in the scheme of things, of problems that people have, that feels dramatic. Mm-hmm. And I still have a job. So it also maybe feels kind of insensitive to be like, this is hard while there's a bunch of people who got laid off. Welcome back and happy Tuesday, turkeys. How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 2 decades.
I am not apologizing for who I am or what I like or the people that I love.
How do I be a wife? How do I be a mom? And how do I be myself in all of that? You didn't see that coming, did you?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, happy Tuesday.
Oh, happy Tuesday. I almost just asphyxiated myself on my own saliva.
It's not good.
No, right? Perfect transition into what do we do when things are tough? Just kidding.
Heimlich, call for help. I don't know.
You can't really Heimlich spit. Okay, I have my hoops on for big hoop energy today, but to set the scene, Jason and I both work for the federal government. So that makes it a kind of having all of our eggs in one basket scenario. That's not exactly my favorite. But I don't know. I just thought it was worth talking about because it seems like when things are difficult, there's a tendency either if you're married to be at each other's throats, or like some people, it seems to make their relationship worse. Or when things are difficult or uncertain, I think it can kind of sharpen your focus and make you realize what's really important in life. And it feels like a good thing to talk about. Not the politics and the yap and the talking head stuff that keeps happening on X and the news and everybody's arguments, but just maybe using it as an opportunity to talk about life and maybe how we prepare for uncertainty of the financial sort. Yeah, Anyway.
I love that.
Andrew.
I love it. It's perfect because I agree. I don't feel like this is the place to discuss our opinions, but I do feel like it's a place to digest what's happening in the world and prepare for like even politics aside, like stuff happens, big life changes. There's like work stuff, whether it's coming from far, far above, or if it's just like a company has to lay off a bunch of people. Like uncertainty happens regardless. We just talked about this with Jordan Peterson's book. There's ups and downs in life. Life is hard. Like, how do we prepare for that? And it's interesting because like you and Jason both work as federal employees. It's funny because me and Kenny do not, but we both work in real estate. And that's also like stressful because we do have all our eggs in one basket in that realm. And it's like, okay, if something's going on with the federal government and they're doing a bunch of layoffs, like y'all, have discussions to have and maybe some things to work out and backup plans and whatever. And it's like same thing for the economy and the market. Like if the housing market crashes, like we're both in it. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we kind of have to prepare for. And we've talked about kind of diversifying our careers a little bit more. But it is interesting when you and your spouse or you and your partner are kind of within the same thing that's kind of potentially at risk or could be affected by something.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have as much safety net with one of y'all being in a different industry or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it sounds naive because single parent households, it's one person and you're it and you're the eggs and you're the only basket and there's nothing else. So I also can't imagine what that feels like because, I mean, Jason and I don't have kids, but I was telling him that it's really nice to have a partner while all of this is happening with the uncertainty, because I just feel so much more secure because he and I are secure with each other and our relationship, and I have somebody to plan with and talk it through. And I just can't imagine how difficult that would be if you're shouldering all of that independently.
Yeah. Or, if something were to happen, knock on wood, not for y'all or whatever, but like you guys have a team and like we've talked about, it's not 50-50. Like if one of y'all needed to find a new job, like the other person, like you can rely on each other to support as much as you guys can while they're figuring something else out or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Even like the single parent thing is on a whole other level, but I know we both appreciate our husbands and the fact that we can have each other's back even when it's hard, because it's a lot easier to go through things with each other than just alone.
It made me sort of have this appreciation that nothing's really guaranteed. And I think I'm in this weird phase, not weird phase. I think I'm in this sort of new awareness of life because you and I started this podcast project, and I think we touched on this a different week, but I've just always been that person that thought I was going to be an employee for my entire life and never questioned that, and maybe took for granted a little bit the security that being a federal employee has to offer, not in the sense of being lazy or cutting corners or not doing my job, because I think I'm too type A and too internally motivated to be that way. Plus, I don't like to be bored, and I enjoy being productive and figuring out ways to be efficient and all of that kind of stuff. So that was never an issue. But I think I sort of just took for granted that that job will be there and that the paycheck will come. And I think a lot of employees do, because it's just, to be fair, with the whole chaos and order concept, I mean, you can't really function day to day if you just think that every moment you're going to fall off a ledge. Mm-hmm. And everything's going to fall apart. So that's not exactly a helpful way of looking at the world. And I would argue it's maybe a little too negative. But it is kind of just an interesting awareness that, hey, no matter what, if I'm an employee, I'm kind of relying on this system or an agency or an employer or a corporation or something to continue to exist. And there have been times throughout being a federal employee when they go through like budget issues with Congress, and, we don't get paychecks for a while and weird stuff like that happens. But, we've always been paid back. We just might have a week or two where we're not actually getting paychecks like we're supposed to. Anyway, it was just kind of a good eye-opening experience to think to myself, okay, nothing really is guaranteed in life, even the things that sometimes seem really sure and really secure. And like, what can I actually rely on? And then what are healthy ways to plan for financial insecurity or job insecurity? And what does that look like? And maybe do I need to shift some of my spending habits or some of my financial goals or, that kind of stuff to feel prepared without feeling like a doomsday prepper.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, I feel like there's definitely a difference. It's funny because this isn't going to resonate with everyone, but I like to listen to like entrepreneurs and all this fun stuff. And everyone's like, you can't rely on one source of income, whether you're self-employed or an employee. Like everyone's like, you got to have 7 streams of income. And I'm like, that sounds great. It's so difficult. But that's why I'm always like, let me do this and let me try that. And all the things that actually haven't worked out. But, you keep trying, and all the most successful people have failed 500 times before they hit it. So, I'm just keeping that in the back of my head. But it is interesting. I've always thought like it's stressful because as much as it can be good for a long time, like things happen and they're out of your control. And it's funny because I'm literally listening to a book right now called Let Them Theory. Well, I think it's just called Let Them. It's by Mel Robbins. I feel like you'd like it. No offense, her voice is not my favorite on Audible. But anyway, it's a really, it's just, But the message is great. I love it. It's like things happen in life and you cannot control everything. And like you just have to, she's obviously speaking about specific people typically, but it's like if your employer is being a butthole, like let them, if you're worried about your job and all this stuff and the world, it feels like it's so divided and it feels crazy. Whichever way you look at the world, there's always a point of view that seems just like, it feels ridiculous right now, whichever way you stand. It's like, let it happen, let them. And then the next thing is let me. So it's like, I'm worried about my job security or what's going on. let them, and then let me maybe have some type of financial planning difference. So let me look at this, or let me maybe have a backup plan or whatever it is.
Mhm.
I just thought it was interesting because I did not read the book for this conversation, but it's fitting and I like it so far.
I like that idea of what do I have control over? And then narrowing, recognizing and identifying where my control ends and then where it begins, and then what's an actionable goal that I can take that's reasonable and I can actually accomplish, and then focusing on something that I have the ability to affect change on instead of, consuming a bunch of content online or via the news about how the world's ending and the market's going to crash, whatever doom story they're spinning or telling or relaying from their point of view to try to get you to stay there through the next commercial break.
I mean, no matter who's sitting in the Oval Office, it's always a doomsday party at
Yeah.
the news places. Like, that's how they
How
make
many
money.
antichrists have we lived through? About as many, more. I think we've lived through more antichrists than pandemics at this point,
That's a good point.
or ends of the world.
Yeah. I feel like that's the
We
other
had the
thing.
Mayan calendar, Y2K, all these times where the world was going to end. I vividly remember for sure people saying Obama was going to take over the world and then Jesus was going to return. Oprah. I'm sure people have said about President Trump.
Well, now it's Elon, so it's like everyone can be categorized. Of course. Like, why wouldn't
Maybe
it be?
someday our podcast will get big enough that we can be the Antichrist. Or
Yeah.
not be it, but be accused of it.
We're not, just to clarify. No, but seriously, it's crazy. And I think this all goes back to like there's so much crap out there information-wise, whether you're watching the news or you're doom scrolling on TikTok or Instagram Reels, which is my mode of information because I don't have TikTok. It's like you're gonna find stuff to stress about everywhere you look. So it's almost like if you're getting stressed out and overwhelmed, like you have to step away from that. Like we have too much information in the world. Like all these plane crashes that are happening, it feels like so much. But then I saw this thing the other day that was like, this is actually kind of normal. I'm like, as far as statistically comparative to the other years. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Are we just hearing about it more? But at the end of the day, it's like, maybe you can't control an email that you get that you have to respond to with things and lists of what you've done, but you can control what you're intaking outside of that and like your anxiety level with what's going on in the world. We have some control. We just got to figure out what we can control and what we can't control.
Yeah. My biggest thing through all of this was just pivoting again to, okay, to having a gratitude practice, because I had let some of that fall by the wayside. So kind of getting back to, okay, what are my good coping skills? It sort of seems that this is what happens all the time, where I'm doing really good with journaling and just sort of the things that keep me centered in between the buffer or the bumpers, if you will. I mean, we've talked about it. I still work out every morning because I have to pre-release steam so that I don't act like a demon, and because I have to absorb people's energy and emotions all day. That has not changed, but just like some of the journaling and some of those things, because I'm not getting up quite as early. It's one more snooze. It's just sort of I kind of chip away at my good habits a little bit here and there, and then something will come up, and then it kind of pushes me to get back to doing some of those things. So this was a good reminder of, okay, I need to narrow my focus again. My lens got a little too wide, and what matters to me, and what things do I do that help me feel refreshed and energized. And just, again, being grateful, consuming funny podcasts or things that are interesting or things that maybe aren't outright political. So, I mean, yes, there sometimes feels this need to be informed and understand what's going on in the world, and I'll justify some of my scrolling by, I need to know what this is. It's really not that helpful, just so for me, sort of shutting off some of that noise and focusing on what's the next thing that I can do. That's correct. That's the right thing. How can I, like Jordan Peterson, that aim up, what's that? What's the purpose? And then also just in that gratitude, being thankful for the things that I do have. And I always appreciate Jason, but I made a point to be intentional about telling him how much I appreciate that he has always been very financially conservative and being very intentional about having a safety net and what's something Ramsey phrase?
Jordan Ramsey.
No, what's his name? Emergency fund.
Oh, yeah.
But you know that financial dude that always said you needed to have that?
It's not Jordan Ramsey. Who is it?
No, I think it's Gordon.
Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like there's also a chef with a very similar name.
Yeah, there is. He's Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay is the chef.
Is the chef. It's something Ramsey is the financial dude, though, right? I'm not wrong on the last name.
No, hold on, I got you. Dave Ramsey. Oh.
Okay, Dave. Anyway, the whole emergency fund concept. Anyway, I'm just very thankful that that's something Jason was super intentional about doing and built that up because he worked 2 jobs for a very long time. And even when he took his position that he has right now, he still stayed on PRN like one day every 6 weeks at the hospital he was at. He just kind of always has these contingency plans. And sometimes it's easy to look at that and think, well, you're being hella negative, thinking everything's going to fall apart all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm glad he doesn't ever want to be financially beholden to one thing or let somebody else ruin his whole life if something changes. So it was nice to be able to tell him again how thankful I am that he's been so intentional to do those types of things and just recognizing, we talked about it. And maybe this is where this conversation that I wanted to have with you today sort of stemmed from. Like, I don't need stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really, having financial security is really helpful, but that can be, yes, I have my job, but that can also be, again, like being intentional about having an emergency fund, not buying a car that results in having a car payment that's going to put you at the just top end of your monthly budget.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I rarely get my hair done. I don't like have nails or lashes or, like some of those things that are just recurring purchases that are easy to spend. I mean, I spend money on a gym membership and, some supplements and things like that. So I have other things I spend money on, and I don't want to be a miserable motherfucker hoarding my coins all the time. But, I was talking to him, even when we bought our house, like, we didn't spend, we budgeted, we purchased, like what we did was well within our means at the time, and our salaries have gone up. Granted, everything else in the world seems to have increased, and just like anything else, homeowners insurance and, things have skyrocketed that were out of our control. But I was like, we could sell everything and I could live in an RV with you and me and the dogs and be happy as a clam. If that meant that we weren't financially beholden to some other institution.
Mm-hmm.
Need a fancy car, and I don't need flashy clothes, and I don't need to go out to expensive dinners. And then it made me so thankful that my relationship with him is built on an actual relationship and not on doing shit or being flashy or, you know what I mean? I mean, we enjoy doing stuff together, but we could go hang out at the beach and we could cook dinner at the house with a cheap bottle of wine. Like, our relationship isn't built on bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
Rude to people that have that, but
I totally get it. It's funny because we've had similar conversations. It's like if the world ends and something crazy happens and we lose everything, it's like I could literally live in a cottage and not work and homeschool and milk some cows and just like live a simple life. I mean, obviously there's steps and all the things, and life is life, but it's just like I don't need stuff. I just need my people that I love, that support you and love you and have your back. And that's really at the end of the day what's the most important, because if you have all the things but you don't have the people, like, you're still going to be miserable and annoying and mean, you know what I'm saying, and not happy. Versus true happiness is just, honestly, I was just listening to Huberman and about some emotional, I don't know, I thought it was gonna be like emotional relationships, and then he went into like the science of like puberty and our hormones, and I'm like, whoa, this is deeper than I thought, which I should have expected that. But it was funny because he said, oh, I just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about?
happiness.
Oh, happiness. He was like, my definition of happiness is going to be different than your definition of happiness. It all comes down to you and your choices and how you define happiness. And it's almost kind of a choice as well when you wake up, like, I am happy. Like, it's not something that comes into you. It's something that you create.
Yeah. It just, I think all of it, and then it makes me thankful that I'm thankful. I don't know. I feel like I'm tooting my own horn, but It's been nerve-wracking and uneasy, and there have been times that I've been irritated and angry, or times that I felt like I wish someone would give me a voice to explain, you know, hey, I'm a frontline person. Let me give you some ideas, or, sometimes it just feels like the people that are speaking on behalf of anywhere you work, it's always somebody that just feels so far away from what your day to day feels like as a little ant on the ground. But it's been really nice to be able to say that, just like you said, if everything goes sideways, we purchased a home in a smart fashion where we wouldn't be upside down, where things things would have to be really, really weird for us to take a loss. So, things like that are just reassuring. Would we maybe not make as much as we wanted? No. Would it be frustrating if our investments, because of the economy, all took a giant shit? Obviously. There's things you work for and you hope to have happen. Mm-hmm. And it would be disappointing maybe if something didn't work out the way you imagined that it would. But then still, I just go back to, we could sell all of this and buy a cheap piece of property somewhere, and I could have no problem living in 700 or 800 square feet.
Right.
I would really like to not live in an apartment where there's people around me, because no one could deal with the dog that I have in an apartment building. But I don't know. Does that make, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It makes me feel like I'm really glad that my life is not built around flashy things, and that Jason and I have been intentional about what makes us happy and what we enjoy doesn't require money to be spent, and to continue to focus on having a savings account and investing in, that savings account, and it just kind of enjoying the simplicity and just the day-to-day things about life. Sometimes it's boring or it's not razzle-dazzle, but mm-hmm. Because I'm around people who are dying a lot with my job, I sort of think, if something were to happen, the really tragic thing is to lose someone that you love, not to mm-hmm. lose your stuff, like mm-hmm. your crap.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I would rather have a boring evening with you, because someday one of us is going to outlive the other. And at that point, that one or the other of us is going to wish for a boring night at home. Mm-hmm. And not to take that for granted, or to be like butthurt that we can't afford to go have a fancy dinner. Right. Does that make sense? I don't know. We went to Five Guys the other night, not because we're in like dire straits, but I just really wanted a burger. I was like, honestly, I would rather just go get a good greasy burger with bacon from Five Guys than go pay $10 more for a burger that's not as good, just so that I can have the ambiance of dimmed lights.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll sit under these fluorescent fucks. That's fine. And then I still got dressed up like a hoe and put on heels. And I was like, no one can tell me what to do. I feel like getting dressed up, but that doesn't mean we have to go spend $100 on dinner.
I love that.
I had a grand old time.
Oh my gosh. Yep. Valentine's Day, we didn't purposely be low key. We just waited way too long. But I was like, I'm perfectly happy going to Dave & Buster's and having a burger and playing some games after you wash your hands from the food, because it's nasty in there. But anyway, it was so fun. It was so chill. I'm like, we don't need to do a fancy all the time, because it doesn't matter. Like, I just want to hang out with you, especially now that date nights are limited, and it's not just like, tonight let's do something. It's like, we got to plan for a sitter and all the things, and we have to be way more intentional about it. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't even want to go to dinner. Why don't we just like drive around and go through In-N-Out drive-through and just hang out and listen to music and not stress about anything?
Yeah. So. Yeah, it makes you appreciate. That's what it is. I think it's when stuff gets weird and things are hard, or if you feel uncertain, it's a good opportunity to narrow your focus and to do an inventory about what things really matter. It's when I think it's really important to have a sense of whimsy and to just not take things so seriously, to be able to laugh, intentionally listen to things that are funny or goofy, or do something that seems weird or kind of off the wall, and just remind yourself that you're this tiny little speck in a giant universe, and also that 10 years from now you're not going to probably not going to remember this moment. And you're certainly not going to remember what some dude on TV said 10 years from now. Like, that really doesn't matter to your
That
day to
is
day.
completely ruining your day at this moment. You're
Yeah.
letting someone on the television who you don't even know, nor can you count on trusting them, say something that spirals your whole day or your whole week or your whole month. And in 10 years, you're going to look back and not even remember it and then be like, wow, I just wasted so much of my life stressing about crap.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, anyway, I don't know. Everybody, if you're having, so I guess the moral of the story is, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow, no matter what. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't matter none of those scenarios matter. I mean, yes, they matter. It's important. Vote, blah, blah, blah. But also, aliens could come tomorrow.
Exactly.
And fuck up our whole, economic system, or
just melt us all. I mean, we could all be gone tomorrow.
Exactly. Somebody else could be the president and an asteroid could hit the earth. I mean, there never is a guarantee. So just
YOLO.
go turn on something funny.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, live in the
future.
moment. Yes. Plan for the future, but be present in today. Have one foot here and one foot there, as JP would like to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess my tip this week would be to narrow your focus. If something is causing you distress and you're waking up every morning and listening to the news and then it's causing you to spiral out of control, try a new habit. Wake up and do a gratitude list, or wake up and listen to something funny, or wake up and take your dog for a walk, or hang out with your cat, whatever you do with a cat. Just go spend some time with a friend that's funny or that makes you laugh.
Do like a 10-day social news detox and see how that makes you feel.
Go thrifting. Just focus on the things that matter and realign your priorities, and we'll be fine. Or we won't, but you can't change that.
Love you. Bye. Speaking of aliens, is that a spaceship back there? I've been staring at it this whole time. You're painting, you're drawing? The left one. Yeah. The right one.
That's a magical toad.
No, the one next to it.
Oh, I can't. It's not in my frame. That is a painting that I did not do that is of a bedroom.
That was a UFO. Swear to God.
Are you talking about my skeleton?
No, I'm talking about the bedroom, apparently. Hold on, I'll take a picture of my view so you can see what I'm talking about.
All right, we'll have to discuss this later.
Goodbye.